For USCFootball.com, I'm Jack Smith, joined by Chris Treviño for instant analysis from the Coliseum for USC's 30-14 win over Washington State. Chris, what were your initial thoughts from today's game?
Well, for one, I feel a bit underdressed, Jack. You're here rocking the suit, the three-piece. I'm here in a hoodie, but it doesn't matter.
It's only two pieces.
Only two pieces. All right, thank you for the correction. But, you know, this game felt similar to me, just looking at it, being able to digest it really quickly and take it in. It just felt a little bit similar to the Oregon State game in that, you know, USC's offense wasn't really clicking on all cylinders. Still much better performance than what we saw in Corvallis. But the big story was that defense, you know, Tuitu, Pelotu, that defense pitching a second half shutout and just holding that Washington State offense and a dynamic quarterback in Cameron Ward to just 14 points on the day. You know, they did a lot they had some runs given up against the Cougars offense, but for the most part shut them down, got to the quarterback, multiple sacks, multiple tackles for a loss. That was the story of the night. It's just that defense gaining more confidence, stepping up, coming off a game where they didn't have the best performance out the gate against Arizona State, but coming here into the Coliseum, dominating from start to finish, even with some adversity of, you know, not having starting linebacker Shane Lee, losing Kalen Bullock to a targeting call in the first half. Adversity, but they answered every call. Offense did enough to get them wins in the end. You know, special teams played really well after, you know, getting much criticism against Arizona State, but USC 6-0. Undefeated, a big win. They got another one coming with Utah on the road. But for right now, you know, defense did what they needed to do. Offense played, you know, not to the level that we've seen, but still enough to come out there with a comfortable win.
Let's focus on the defense. That's their second half shutout of the year, the first one since the Rice game. They've only allowed 36 points across 6 second halves so far this year. What do you think the story is about this defense that makes them come alive so much in the second half?
This is a second half team, and for whatever reason, you know, Alex Grinch was asked about it. You know, he said he likes to think that, you know, what they're saying at halftime is falling on their ears, and they're able to use that as motivation. They come out in the second half with that better effort, but that intensity. You know, we asked kind of Eric Gentry the same thing, and, you know, I think it all boils down to confidence. He was talking about how this defense has so much confidence. You know, in this game right now, you know, they almost had that safety coming. I know a lot of fans were like, that was a safety, but, you know, Pac-12 officiating, a lot of flags, maybe we'll comment on that. But, you know, they thought they had a safety. They didn't want to go into halftime. They wanted to keep playing. That's what Eric Gentry said. Like, everyone was standing up in the locker room. They were ready to go. So they had that energy. They had that fire. They had that confidence. That's what he said. Everything about their defense is about confidence. They have that swagger. They have that attitude. They have that notion that if the way they're practicing in the week, the games are easy. And that's kind of what this defense has taken into these Saturdays, into these second halves, is this is easy, this is light work. No one can beat us when we're on. And that's kind of the tilt that they've been playing with. And obviously we saw that tonight here in the Coliseum.
Well, I think I'd be confident, too, lining up anywhere near Tuitu Pelotu, who has just been wrecking havoc throughout the Pac-12 all year for the Trojans. Tonight, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, was also in on another sack by Nick Figueroa. He was all around for the Trojans, especially in the first half. He was kind of the tone setter today that some other players have been throughout the year.
We've heard, you know, all offseason, all summer, all spring, it's all about Tuli. And you see these moments where he is just the best guy out there. Eric Gentry was like, that's just Tuli being Tuli. We know that's the level of play that he has. He plays like a first round. That's what he said. That's the level he plays at. He's a first round player. He's an All-American type player, and that's what we've seen. And Jack, I'm just a conspiracy theory. It was a full moon tonight. I'm just saying, you know, something brought that out. That monster Tuli came out tonight. You know, like you said, 3 sacks on the season. He was top 10 in the sacks top 10 in sacks in the nation going to this game. I'm excited to see where he is. He might be, you know, top 5, top 3 even. 4 tackles for a loss overall. I think he took back that lead. He might be the leader in the Pac-12 after this because he was second by 1 going to this game. So I think he did enough to take that over. But Tuli was just playing at an outstanding level. And he was asked about, you know, his level of play today. And he was like, it doesn't matter to me as long as we're getting the wins. It doesn't matter how many plays I make. As long as we're getting wins, that's what he's happy with. And spoken like a true team captain, a true leader, and Tuli very humble, very unselfish. But everyone else will gas him up. Everyone else. Eric Gentry will be like, that's Tuli, monster, first round guy. But Tuli just put the team on his back, and he was the tone setter for this defense, especially one that was down a couple guys in Shane Lee and Kalen Bullock, like I mentioned.
Well, if he does get drafted in the first round, I think ESPN's going to have a lot of fodder from you, calling him a chess queen this year, I guess a werewolf now with the full moon. So Tuli Tuipulotu has been fantastic for the Trojans so far. A couple key points on defense as well. We mentioned Shane Lee, the starting linebacker, did not play today. Raylan Goforth stepped up and I thought did a good job. So did Eric Gentry. You had a couple other plays where Kalen Bullock gets ejected early for targeting. They start to target Anthony Beavers a little bit, the replacement safety, and a couple good plays in there. But other than that, the defense really shut down. I thought that they really fought through adversity like you mentioned. Any of those plays or players stick out to you?
I think just everyone stepped up when they needed to. That was kind of the theme with Lincoln Riley, talking about this defense, losing Shane Lee. They said that we thought he was going to be able to play. Didn't. Raylan Goforth, he has drawn a lot of criticism for his play throughout the years, including this season, been more of a rotational player with Lee. But like you said, I thought he stepped up and played a great game, led the team in tackles with 8. He came out and said, I'm not going to listen to all that. I'm just going to go out there and play my game, prepare every day like I'm a starter. And then the defensive line, that front, maybe their best game of the season, Jack. They got to the quarterback, 5 sacks on the game, 9 tackles for a loss. Nick Figueroa with 2 sacks. I call him Nick Sackaroa when he gets in the backfield. So mentioned that a lot. Nick Figueroa, who has turned more into a rotational player, but so good at pass rushing. He has just been a key guy at the pass rush. Solomon Byrd had some big plays. Tyrone Taleni had some big plays. Everyone seemed to be stepping up on that defensive front, and they had an outstanding game. And as you mentioned, Anthony Beavers, Bryson Shaw, those guys really stepped up when Kalen Bullock, one of their defensive leaders, left the game on a targeting call in the first half. Very disappointing. A big stick by the guy they call Sticks, but in the end, that was the officials called. But that's what Lincoln Riley was preaching in terms of when you have something happen, even if it's positive or a negative, just respond. Again, doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, respond. If you keep responding to these things, you're going to find your way out of it in the end, whether, again, positive or negative. And USC did have some negative hits in that first half. They lost Kalen Bullock. They looked disjointed at times. There was that series where they were targeting Anthony Beavers a lot, and they were marching down the field. And Kalen Bullock said to Anthony Tone on the sideline later, like, you're going to get your opportunity again. They're going to come back at you, and you're going to get your opportunity. So Kalen Bullock turned into the #1 cheerleader on the defense, and I saw that energy all night from him, hyping guys up. So that defense really rallied around each other despite, some adversity that hit them. But like Lincoln said, they responded. They responded well, and they earned the second half shutout, and they earned all those big plays that they made tonight.
Well, you mentioned similarity to the Oregon State game. This time, no 3 picks. Same with the Rice game. It's not like you had 3 pick sixes today, but you could argue this was the defense's best overall effort, as they got it done without needing turnovers, which is something that USC fans and people across the country have said. This defense, they're not good if they can't turn the ball over. No turnovers today. They forced so many 3-and-outs, tons of punts. The sacks kind of almost took over for the interceptions. One other thing before we move on, I thought they did a good job limiting Cam Ward as a runner. We asked Raylan Goforth about facing rushing quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks. He said he thought they handled it pretty well. Obviously, things to clean up. But I think for the defense that has struggled for years facing mobile quarterbacks, I thought the last 2 weeks they've proven to limit them a little bit more.
Absolutely. That's been a bugaboo for USC defenses over the last several years, as you mentioned, running quarterbacks, getting to the edge. And there's a reason why running quarterbacks and dual-threat quarterbacks are so popular in college football, because they create so much chaos. And Alex Grinch mentioned that you could do everything right as a defense against a mobile quarterback, but because they have their legs, they can punish you for doing everything right, everyone being sound on their assignment, but no one's looking at the mobile quarterback. Oh, there he goes for 30 yards down the field. So that's why USC loves having a mobile Caleb Williams, and it's why USC has had trouble containing quarterbacks, but they did a really good job. Cameron Ward made some plays tonight with his legs, but USC's defense made more in containing him, forcing him out of the pocket, forcing him to, be a little bit hesitant with his throwing and kind of have to make weird decisions on the run. He had that jump lob pass that was incomplete that the refs overturned. So just things like that, getting to him, making him off balance, not letting him get settled in his throws. Those were the kind of things the defense was doing. And as I mentioned, the defensive front did a lot of work tonight, and, they earned all those sacks, all those tackles for a loss. And, they really made him uncomfortable back there. And you saw the result, only holding him to this offense to 14 points.
Yeah, I think that's a big win for the Trojan defense, only allowing the Cougars to score 14 points. On the other side, the offense, slightly a weird game, but still 30 points on the scoreboard. That was due in large part to Travis Dye and the offensive line coming through once again, just like they did against Fresno State and a couple other games this year. Dye is a workhorse, and this offensive line got back on track this week.
He is the smallest workhorse that you're ever going to see, Jack. I do not understand the physics of Travis Dye. He's like this tall. He's got a huge mustache, but he just runs hard. He wears no gloves. He's kind of like old school, and I just don't understand it. But there he is, churning out yards. I'm watching through the viewfinder of my camera when I'm filming, and he'll just pop out of nowhere and run through somebody or drag two guys with him. So Travis Dye, another spectacular game, another game where, you know, as we mentioned, the offense not quite as clicky, but Travis Dye has been the consistent when they need those runs, they need those critical yards. Travis Dye, number 26, the veteran, is the guy they've turned to. Caleb Williams, as we mentioned, you know, 2 touchdowns on the night. You know, he did have a pick erased because of a penalty, so not his cleanest night. Only 188 yards, but he made some black magic happen. You know, got out some plays. You know, that is a really good defensive front that they faced today. You know, they were, you know, top number 3 in the country in tackles for a loss, up there in sacks as well. So that was a really good defense, and I think a lot of people didn't really know what to make of Washington State's defense because they had shut out some weaker opponents. You know, they went out to Wisconsin, shut them down out in Big Ten country. But then the Oregon game, you know, that was a complete meltdown in the fourth quarter. But I think they showed tonight that they are a legit defense, probably arguably the best in the Pac-12. Sorry, USC fans. You know, USC still needs to do a little bit more to claim that title. But Washington State, really good front. Travis Dye even mentioned, like, that defensive line is crazy, and, you know, a lot of credit to that offensive line for what they were able to do and open up those holes for him.
Well, yeah, 7th in the nation in sacks coming into today. Tied for 2nd in the country in tackles for loss. I thought the USC offensive line did a fantastic job limiting the ability that the defensive line to make plays. Like, they didn't let the defensive line determine what was going to happen in the game. And, yeah, USC offense was not perfect. Wide receivers dropped some passes. Caleb Williams off target a couple times, but Dye was there when they needed him. He's 100% conversion rate when he gets the ball on 3rd or 4th and short so far this year. There's yet to be a carry for Travis Dye on a short yard situation where he hasn't converted a first down. Feels like USC might need to go to him a little bit more when they get to the red zone and some of those plays, but Travis Dye has been so consistent. The offensive line, I thought, bounced back in a big way today. Bobby Haskins pretty much taking all the plays at left tackle. Justin Dedich returning at guard. I thought the offensive line returned to form. Travis Dye was great. Let's talk about Caleb Williams a bit. Not his best game, but again, when they needed him most, Caleb Williams came through.
That's the most important part, Jack. When they needed him most, he found ways to make those plays, get them down the field, pick up 3rd downs, you know, move the offense. That's what's most important. You know, you're going to look at his stat sheet, and it's not going to be pretty. But you know what's going to be pretty? The win next to his name. That's what's going to be pretty, and that is exactly what this offense has done. And just like the Oregon State game, made the play when he needed to. You know, he had some moments where he escaped the packet. Like I mentioned, I believe Washington State only had 1 sack on the night on him, so that's pretty good considering what this defense has done coming into this game. But Caleb Williams, leader, keep everyone nice and relaxed on the sideline, and they made those plays when they needed to. Him with Travis Dye has been a winning combination for this offense.
Let's wrap it up by talking about the little things, which for USC fans for a very long time, you'd have a good offense, you'd have some good defense, but the little things would be what lost the game for USC. Today, they clearly won the game through the little things. You're talking about special teams, the lack of penalties on the other side, and not giving up when you're in situations that are not ideal. USC, on all 3 of their touchdown drives, had a 3rd and 13 plus on the last series. 2 3rd and 13 plus passes to Mario Williams, and then when they got to 3rd and 19 at the end of half, there was an offsides. They went to Malcolm Epps in the end zone for pass interference. They punched in to go into the half up by 3 points instead of down by 4. So I thought that USC did the little things well. Washington State shot themselves in the foot a little bit, but I think it's a good sign that USC is on the other side of a game like that as opposed to the last couple years.
Absolutely, and again, that goes back to what Lincoln said about responding. Even if it's negative, even if it's something that the other team did, respond to that, and you're going to find your way out of it. You're in a long 3rd down. You know, they made those plays, you know, the long touchdown to Mario Williams, the other touchdown to Mario Williams, and then just the PI call that they got, you know, not targeting, can't use targeting when 2 guys were ejected, but going to Malcolm Epps in the end zone and picking up a PI. You know, those are the kind of things you want to see. Doesn't matter if you're faced with 3rd and 13 or 3rd and 1. You know, just respond in a way that's going to get you to where you need to go. And I think they did a good job of that. You know, they only had 5 penalties on the night. Washington State, I believe, had 11 for 105. You know, Pac-12 refs were throwing that flag all over the place. They were letting it have it. But I think USC played discipline, and Lincoln Riley said that was a key part to the night. You know, they did the little things, as you said, even on special teams. You know, USC drew a lot of criticism for the special teams play last week. Really improved in there, and while we don't think of really special teams as maybe that key part key part of a football team? Some people do, and some, you can lose a game because of what happens on special teams. So they made those plays. They had some good kickoff returns. Punt team was really nice. They just did what they needed to do, and this was easily a game where if they're shooting themselves in the foot, USC could have started shooting themselves in the foot, but they avoided that, kind of the pitfalls that they had in Oregon State. Play a little bit cleaner, I think also energy is a big part of it. Travis Dye mentioned that he thought the energy coming out of in the first half was better than it was against Arizona State. He didn't say it was where he wanted it to be. He said it was better. He said they still need a lot of work to do, and that's a little thing. And I think he thinks they improved on that significantly, but still have a lot of work to do on that.
It was not a perfect game. It was kind of ugly. Pac-12 refs, a very long game. The second and third quarters took forever. A lot of things going on, but still, a 30-14 win. USC covers the spread. They get another home win. They're 6-0. They were 4-8 last year. They're 6-0. They're already bowl eligible through 6 weeks. They go to Utah next week. Are there any other thoughts that you have wrapping up this game or kind of a look ahead?
Yeah, just 3 very quick things I wanted to mention. Mario Williams had a really nice game. Led the team in catches and yardage, and had those 2 big scores. And he was like, he didn't really think much enough. He was pretty humble. He's like, I just went out there and did my job. I asked him about that great diving catch, that sliding catch. He was like, just made a play, just nothing to it. So he did have a couple of bad drops, but he came back and responded. Jack responded to the adversity that he faced, responded to having some drops, but making some touchdowns. So he had a really nice game. I just wanted to comment on the offensive line. By the end of the game, Jack, they were beat up. I mean, Justin Dietich coming back from, sitting out last week, you could tell he was not fully there, but, Bobby Haskins had to lead the game for a little bit, and Mason Murphy really stepped up with his play at that left tackle, much better than the game he had to fill in earlier in the season. And, by the end of that game in that fourth quarter, when they were driving down there for that final field goal, they were beat up, man. But that was a warrior effort that they gave, because that is a really good defensive front, and I know those Cougars were giving them hell in the trenches, but, they stood tall. Only 1 sack, as I mentioned. I believe they had 5 tackles for a loss, which against a top tackle for a loss team, that's pretty good thing. Pretty good, all things considered, but I just wanted to give a shout-out to the offensive line, because they earned a rest, they earned an ice bath, they earned a lot of things after this game, and, yeah, I think that's key. Was this easily could have been a game where the offensive line struggled, especially bringing Justin Dietich back, who is not 100%. They could have struggled, but they rose to the challenge of that.
Yeah, I think USC fans will remember 2017. Washington State had another great defensive line. Hercules Mataafa. That's the reason the Trojans lost the game. The offensive line didn't step up. This week, they absolutely did. The Trojans go to Utah next week, and then they've got to bye. Any last thoughts before we head out and we go into next week, Utah game?
I think it's going to be a fun game. Obviously the Utes were... they lost that game out here in California to UCLA right up the road at the Rose Bowl. So it took a little bit of air out of what could have been a top 10 matchup between Utah and USC, possibly a college game day. But, that's a scary opportunity for Utah. Now they lost, they're pissed, they're refocused, they're coming home. UCLA did show kind of a blueprint to help USC, in terms of attacking that Utah defense. But this is going to be a really interesting matchup, because Utah, I expect them to come out firing in that game after coming off a loss like that to UCLA. So it's going to be a big one. It's going to be packed. It's going to be rocking. This will be a big opportunity for USC to show that they've improved on their coaching and their preparation for an intense road environment. Jack, that stadium's not going to be half full. That stadium is going to be full go, full rockin', and it's an electric environment. I've been up to Salt Lake City multiple times, and it's a very loud, intense environment. So I'm excited to see how Caleb Williams, Lincoln Riley, how they handle that on the road and all that, and how the defense kind of responds. I know the defense is probably going to be soaking it all in, and I expect them to have a good game, but big matchup. This is the one everyone has circled, so I'm excited to see with that. And then my last point was just Jordan Addison did get a little bit banged up. We did not get an update on that, but he did return in the game. He did play in those final snaps in the second half before he was pulled late, but it seems like he is okay. Something we'll monitor, but did not get an official injury update on him.
Yeah, I'm not sure a target went his way after he came back in the game, but it was notable. It did look bad when he was coming off the field that he was able to get back into the game. It kind of shows you a little bit about the severity. But yeah, USC plays Utah next week. They escaped here from the Coliseum. Another home win. They're 6-0, 30-14 the win over Washington State. We're going to get out of here. Make sure you guys are checking out USCfootball.com, Inside Troy on YouTube for all the content from today's game. Interviews. He's going to have field highlights coming out in the next couple of days, so make sure you're checking that out. For Chris Treviño, I'm Jack Smith. This has been Instant Analysis. Check out USCfootball.com for more.